One click for you. Whoops. One click for you. Whoops. One click for you. Whoops. Oh, we're getting a lot of noise, aren't we? Yeah, we are getting a lot of static. Okay, let's see here. Let's check now. How's that? Let's check now. How's that? Let's check. Okay, good. Oh yes, always some kind of technology issue, right? So anyway, hello everyone. Hello, and welcome to Satsang. Welcome to our wonderful, fun opportunity to not that way, this way. Our wonderful opportunity to ponder the deepest question of a life, which is, who am I? Who am I really? Not the ideas about who I am, but the actual truth of who I am. That's what Satsang is about. So as we start, I'm going to invite everybody right now to just kind of close your eyes for a second. I won't turn this into a full-blown meditation for hours on end, but just let yourself really come into this present moment. I mean, this present moment is always where you are. You're never anywhere else. But in our minds, we're forever running to the past and to the future. So I want you to, right in this moment, just put everything in the past to the side, including your name, your gender, your origin, your ethnicity, everything you know. Imagine you're like a little kid. You have no past. You have no concept of future. Everything is right this moment. And just experience yourself completely free of ambition, of problems, of concerns, of doubts. You're completely and totally free. There's no past intruding itself on you. There's no future calling you. Just the pure experience of being. It's so simple. It's so direct. Take everything away, and whatever's left is just you. And bring into this space of satsang that sense of innocence, of openness, of curiosity. Curiosity about your very being, the nature of being itself. The deepest questions that have been pondered by people since time immemorial. The nature of your existence. No special degrees are required for this examination. Since you are yourself, you do exist, you have all the credentials you need to explore and know for certain, with no doubt, who and what you actually are. So take a nice deep breath, and if you have your eyes closed, open them up now. And officially welcome to Satsang. Let's see, we got Mitra says hello. Hello, Mitra. Hi from Florida, from True Self-Emerging. John David says, good, Daryl. Every fine on the sound now. Excellent, yeah. A lot of switches and buttons to push. Namaste, everyone, from Ava. Sarah Sands, your oneness workshop was great. When is the next one? Yes, I do want to thank everyone who participated in the oneness workshop that I did Thursday. The largest number of registrants for a workshop that I've ever done. And the replay is still available for those of you who'd like to get a hold of it. It's by donation only. You just go to the page, you donate, and you'll be able to get immediate access to it. And it really was quite interesting, even for me. I had a whole bunch of notes, and I only went through about half of them. And it's the wonderful thing about really being in life like a child is that everything just happens so spontaneously, so simply, so beautifully. Life really does take care of itself. Life takes care of life. And you are the witness to that. So thank you, Sarah. It was really fun for me too. David and Elaine. Hi, GP and all. Greetings from Southeast England. We've had the heat wave. Now the rain and storms, but it's all beautiful. Really enjoyed the Oneness Workshop on Thursday. Oh, great. Thank you. Hi from Nevada, from Robert. Hello, Robert. Anja, hello from Germany, everybody. Ursula, hello from Portugal. Chris Skills, hey GP, can you say a thought is an object? So a thought is the same thing as seeing a car drive past or seeing a person? Can you see thought as the same thing, just an object? Beautiful. Yes, that's all it is. It's a subtle object. Anything perceivable is an object, right? It doesn't have to be an object, like something like this or like this, right? It doesn't have to be a solid thing. Any form is an object, because remember, we're simply looking at it from the subject-object relationship. So anything that I perceive, the word for it is object. It's some kind of object. Some objects are very subtle, like emotions and thoughts. Others are very gross and solid, like a mountain. I mean, the mountains aren't gross. I mean, gross in the sense that they're large. They're large. They seem solid, like a building or something like that. But all form is an object. Now, you can actually go into that even more deeply. If you look at the nature of perception, we don't see external objects. We see images in the brain, in the mind. Barbara says, thank God for replays. Good night. Good night, Barbara. So, what we're always looking at is an object of perception. Always. Whether it's a thought or a car driving past. The only place we ever experience anything is within consciousness. We believe that this object exists independent of my perception, and that my perception is a means by which I perceive a objective universe that exists whether I perceive it or not. And therein lies the fundamental difference between the approach of non-duality and spirituality and the approach of materialism. So just ponder that for a moment. The actual character, quality, and nature of your experience is absolutely no different whether I'm looking at a mountain, I'm looking at the picture of a mountain, I'm looking at the image in my mind of a mountain. And the one thing they have in common is the consciousness that is perceiving them. Even according to science, all we ever see are images in the brain. Well, who's looking at it? It's always the question I come back to. Who is the one cognizing those images? It's just assumed, well, the brain is somehow. So now you've got the brain, one part of the brain that's producing an image and another part of the brain looking at it. The nature of consciousness is so mysterious, so contrary to anything else in the entire universe, that to simply say, well, it must be some kind of process of matter, I think it's certainly premature and actually even a bit irresponsible. We don't know what it is. We don't know what consciousness is. We know that it is. And I also know that since nothing else I can experience can be experienced without it, consciousness is myself. The best version, the most essential idea I can hold of myself is that of a perceiving consciousness. Because without that, nothing else happens. It's more fundamental than even a body. Without a consciousness to perceive a body, it would mean nothing. I would be a rock. So every object, however material it seems or however ephemeral it seems, is an object to perception. The thing to become interested in is the subject. The objects are legion, innumerable. The subject is one. Is that going in the direction you want it to go, Chris? Love your questions. You always ask great questions. Paramjeet, hi from London. Hello. Sally Atherton, right? Message retracted. I think she just said, thank you for the oneness. Lone Dragonfly, hello from Los Angeles. It's Patricia. Oh, hi, Patricia. Patricia Z. Hello, how are you? With a different name. Hello from Wisconsin, from Laura Reed. Hi, Laura. Sally Atherton. Hi, GP. It's Sally from Southeast England. I so enjoyed your oneness workshop. Thanks much for doing that. Namaste to you, and all on here. Wonderful, wonderful. I had so much. It was such a spontaneous idea that I had to do the oneness workshop. It came together very quickly, and also the idea to just do it purely by donation. I think I've mentioned I've just gotten so tired of the whole internet marketing thing that I said, screw it. Here, go here, donate the money. I don't care how much it is. You're in. And even had some people that didn't even feel free to donate $1, so I let them in as well. It really does help. There were some people who donated a larger sum, which really helped cover it all. And so it really was a wonderful, wonderful experience on all levels. And it really was a fun workshop to do. Greetings from Jacksonville, Florida, from Annette. Hello, Annette. Barbara is heading off to bed because it's very late there in Sweden is where she is, I believe. John M., that was an awesome intro. Really resonated. What is the highest quality of being, if there is one? What's really important to really understand this remarkable wonder and mystery of the non-dual nature of our being is that being itself must, by definition, be quality-less. There can't be any quality that distinguishes being from something else. Otherwise, it would not be infinite. Right? You know, I can distinguish this hand from this hand, right? They're similar, very similar, but they're different, right? Every object around is distinguishable. In fact, every object is nothing but a unique combination of attributes, right? So what is the source of all attributes? The mystery, the paradox, is that the source of all attributes is itself attributeless. It is emptiness, not nothingness. It is simply empty of any specific form, shape, content, or anything. That makes it the infinite potential for everything. It means anything that can possibly be is simply a collection of the attributes emanating from that which itself does not have any attributes. Now, when I say doesn't have any attributes, I don't mean it's blank. What I mean is that it in and of itself, the one, the essential, cannot be defined at all. It can't be known, it can't be conceptualized, it can't be thought, it can't be... The Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. And so you see the Tao, the one, reality, reflected in everything. So nothing, no object has inherent existence. Like the moon does not have light. We love the moonlight, walking in the moonlight, holding hands. We fall in love to the moon. We write poetry to the moon. We write songs about the moon. We howl at the moon. We have legends about the effect of the moon on us, right? And yet the moon emits no light. There's no light there at all. It is merely reflecting qualities that it does not itself possess. And so the nature of everything is essentially emptiness. Or to put it in Buddhist terms, no self, no inherent existence. That which reflects does not have an inherent existence. The image in your mirror, in the mirror, as true to the original as it is not the original. An echo, as true to the original as it is not the original. It is just an echo. So the reflection is always in a sense, a reduction, but it is that reduction, the isolating of certain qualities and the removal of others, even though being itself has infinite qualities, is what allows an object some kind of existence to happen. You know, the meaning of the word exist, derives from the Latin word existare, and what it means is to stand out from. So it's not like something comes into existence self-aware, right? Oh, here I am, right? It's not like that at all. It's simply that a certain quality of attribute gets drawn out from the empty background of attributes, of all attributes, and suddenly something is seen. We call that coming into existence. It comes into view. Is that, are you guys following this? I hope I'm not going too far down the rabbit hole. So everything you experience is but the appearance or manifestation of the one, the essential. Now science goes along with that, right? At every level, this body is simply the appearance of a very complex set of cells that are functioning temporarily in a particular degree, with a particular degree of unity, right? Temporarily, for sure, right? But if you look at each one of those cells, you find that each one of the cells is but a temporary functioning of some of the organic molecules that under it lies. So this is an appearance of that layer. Well, you go down another layer now. The molecule is an appearance of another layer. And you go down, and that's the atomic layer. Then you go down to the subatomic and the quantum, and you keep going, right? At some point, and science has been after this, they have been looking for that which is. That not something that's an appearance of something else, which is what all of this is, but what is. Something must be, right? Everything it can't be an infinite regression, right? If everything is just an appearance of, there's got to be something, right? Now for science, it's some kind of a fundamental particle or a string or a wave or something, right? But for the non-dual approach, that fundamental thing, that which actually is and is not an appearance of anything else, is consciousness. That which is actually hearing my words right this minute is the essential, is the fundamental, is that which is, and is not an appearance of anything else. Everything else is an appearance of something other than itself. Consciousness, that's not the case. That is the origin point of everything that exists. That is, everything that is an appearance in consciousness and is made of consciousness and has no existence separate from consciousness. I hope that's clear. Ahmad, hi from Iraq. Hello, Ahmad. Wonderful to have you. Hello from Jalisco, Mexico. Thank you for doing satsang. Love your background today. Oh, great. Yeah, I was just playing around to see if I could make it a little bit more interesting, and I did. It looks kind of nice, doesn't it? It looks kind of fun. Thanks. Love your satsangs. Love from LA. Hello, Malone. Carrie says the mental feeling I am is an object in mind. It disappears in deep sleep and reappears when appearances arise. Is that the I am that I am? Oh boy, subtle question. Good question. Very good question. The sense I am. The intuitive sense I am is the firstborn of the pure absolute. It is actually secondary, right? And you can tell it's secondary because you're perceiving it. And that if you can perceive it, it's obviously some kind of an object, subtle. Matter of fact, the sense I am, the intuitive sense I am, is the subtlest object there is. And it is from there that the entire universe is created. That I am is what one would think of as God. But there's something even more essential that is not perceivable at all. It is that which is doing all of the perceiving, including the sense I am. Now, this is very deep, very, very deep. And if this is going over your head, don't worry about it. It's not important. That sense I am is extremely important. That's the sense of presence. That is the doorway into the absolute. That is the place from, on one side is just the infinite diversity of all of creation and all of the dynamic consciousness. In the other direction is the utter vastness of emptiness. In the middle is this sense I am. But notice that even that is being perceived. Now, it's not an image in the mind, okay? It is simply the sense, the consciousness' own sense of itself. Now, the mind has all sorts of ideas about what that is, that I am. It's, oh, I am the body. I am a man. I am a woman. I am poor. I am rich. I am smart. I am dumb, right? The mind puts all sorts of adjectives or direct objects on the I am part. The I am is obvious. It's self-evident. And it's always there. It's always there. It is a constant. But that which is aware of it always being there is beyond everything. That is the absolute. That which cannot be even talked about. I can't even talk about it as the I am. It's the I am before even the sense of I am. Before there's a word I am. Before there's a feeling I am. Because even the sense of I am must have the actual isness, the actual reality of existence in order for it to be. So even the sense I am is a perceivable quality of the absolute. Is that clear? It's really deep. And again, if this one goes right over your head, don't worry about it. So does that answer it for you, Carrie? Very powerful question. Remember, the way to discern any kind of object, however subtle, is by seeing if it is perceivable. If it is perceivable, it is some kind of an object. Now remember, there's nothing wrong with objects. There's nothing wrong with perceiving. The only problem is when we believe that the object we are perceiving exists independently from our perception of it, and therefore is a self-existent entity rather than a reflection. That's the problem. When you see it as a reflection appearing in consciousness, it ceases to be a problem. It actually becomes the face of God. It becomes the manifestation of the One. It becomes a reflection of the pure, invisible light of true being, of the absolute consciousness. And just occurred to me, John M. had asked the question about what is the highest quality of being, if there is one. And I talked about the nature of qualityless nature of being. But when you're looking at the qualities that arise from being, what are the highest? Love, happiness. That's simple. That's a simple, easy answer. Yeah, love. What's the highest expression of oneness? Love, happiness, joy. Remington said, no questions today. Be amazing. I'm listening. I'll do my best, Remington. I'll do my best. David and Elaine. Although the ego doesn't exist as an entity and is an illusion, but paradoxically, we've heard it may be detrimental for a fragile ego to hear there is no separate self or consider its non-existence. Is that the form of a question? We've heard that it may be. Okay. It's an interesting one because if the sense of self is recognized as a sense of self and not the self, no problem. Right? That's the ego, the harmless ego. And in fact, it is absolutely essential that develop and become healthier in order to have a functional life. Now, it doesn't have to become healthy to wake up, okay? And oftentimes the unhealthy ones tend to wake up because of the level of suffering. But in order for a life to be functioning, there has to be a certain stability to the whole system, the whole conflicting energies that exist inside every human being. Is it detrimental for a fragile ego? There are people that I've talked to and I have coached where it was clear to me that there was no point in going into the non-dual direction. So we would go a completely different way, a different path, in terms of helping them strengthen themselves, become more functional. And that's the way I approach it. Now, grace being grace, it can intervene at any time and have a huge, tremendous breakthrough and insight, even in the most unstable of individuals, the most unstable sense of self. The sense of self is something that is perceived, isn't it? The one who's awake also perceives the sense of self. It's the same, right? There's a sense of this body here, the sense of being somebody, I am GP. There's a sense of that. GP is the name for this very complex set of functioning, sometimes complicated. It's complicated. It's just not an entity. That's it. It's just not an entity. So I have a name for this functioning. I call it GP. There's definitely a sense of presence. There's a sense of me being someone. There's a sense of my maleness. There's a sense of my age. There's a sense of the place in the room. There's a sense of relationship. All of those things are there, right? They're not a problem. They're not a problem. The sense, though, we need to understand that a sense of something is not the truth of something. It's just a sense. A feeling is just a feeling. It's not a reality. It's not the ultimate truth. It's going to change. The sense of myself is going to change. It's changed dramatically over the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And it'll change again, right? And that sense will eventually just completely dissolve, right? And there'll be a sense of not having a sense of self. And I, the thread of consciousness that sits behind the entire thing, will notice that there is no sense of self here now. And another one might arise or may not. Who knows? Who cares, right? Because it doesn't actually affect the ultimate absolute perceiver. So, any kind of spiritual information that is a deep inquiry into the nature of things is better approached by someone who's a bit stable. And this is just talking from experience, right? Again, there's no hard and fast rule here. But somebody who's not stable is going to be clutching. They're going to be grabbing because they want the sense of stability. And that's what happens in mental illness and the like. There's a sense of instability, and it's very frightening. That's why people who have various kinds of mental illnesses are afraid, right? Because there's nobody solid, that they're kind of thrown this way and that. So there is a tendency for them to want to kind of grab on to something and hold on very tightly. My mother, who was mentally ill, that's what she did. She would hold on to these things till she couldn't hold on anymore, and then the story would change. She'd become somebody else, and she'd hold on onto that for a bit, doggedly, right? Because just the underlying sense of self was so unstable and so frightened that it becomes very graspy and grabby. It's best to try to deal with that first and bring some kind of calmness and relief from trauma and a sense of stability there, because then they will be more stable in the inquiry that they do. I hope that's clear. Again, this doesn't apply to anybody here. I haven't heard any questions coming from people that seemed a little bit odd, but I have gotten them. For people that you could clearly see, there were some issues there, and so you just answer them differently. Oh yeah, please like and share. By the way, I always forget to ask that. It always helps, and to bring more people in. Wendy Danks, hi GP. So look forward to your satsangs. Love for the UK. I look forward to them too. I love doing this. John M says, powerful answer. Thank you. You're very welcome. Good. I got one. Score one from me. Total self-emerging. Can you talk a bit about holding space, allowing the uncomfortable layers of the conditioned self as they unfold while not identifying with it? What is your perspective on dark night of the soul? Beautiful, beautiful. The stories of awakening. We heard a story about Ramana Maharshi or Christ or Buddha or some Zen guy. We hear these really dramatic stories of the awakening. Paul on the road to Damascus or whatever it was, when the light from the sky and all of that, and Moses in the burning bush, and so we tend to think of awakening in terms of this one great blast and it's done for good. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, there can be a blast that just lays waste to lifetimes worth of conditioning. But for most, it doesn't happen that way. It happens much more gradually. There's an intuitive sense that just says, there's more to this. There's more to this than just getting born, doing a bunch of stuff, get married, have kids, buy things, make a little money, save for retirement, and go to sleep one day and never wake up. There's got to be more to it, that we feel it instinctively, intuitively. But what we run into is our own tendencies, our habits, our conditioning, our programmed response. We want to be better, and suddenly you find yourself not being better, reverting behaviors and stuff like that. If you understand that consciousness is that which is doing the perceiving, and you lose your sense of thinking that somehow enlightenment is supposed to make everything easy out here, right? It does, but not in the way you think. It's not supposed to make it easy by adjusting circumstances. It makes it easy by switching up your relationship to your own experience. So instead of fighting with feelings, trying to be more spiritual, trying to be more compassionate, trying to be more loving, trying to meditate more often, right? Instead, you fall into this place where you're simply allowing whatever you feel to come to the surface and be felt. You stop the internal conflict. When you stop the internal conflict and you really let yourself experience whatever you're experiencing in that moment without resistance, that's what holding space is. And the more you do that for yourself, the easier it is to do for others as well. Matter of fact, you have to do it for yourself first, or you will be in conflict with others. But as you do that for yourself, you just hold space. Well, then other people come into that space, and it also doesn't disturb you, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the sense of an uncomfortable feeling loses its sting. Matter of fact, even the word uncomfortable doesn't make sense anymore because it's just a word that we apply to a particular quality of a sensation. And if I don't like that sensation, I say it's uncomfortable. I want it to go away. This shouldn't be here. Right? But if none of that thought is there, it's just a sensation. Is it uncomfortable or comfortable? Those are just words. It's just a neutral sensation, always. Now, again, we don't get there immediately. The first step of awakening is a willingness to turn within and simply allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling, to let things be the way they are. As you do that, you have literally created a safe space within you because you're not in conflict anymore. If a feeling comes up and you don't like it and you're resisting, you're doing this, it's not safe for that feeling, is it? It's being rejected, and who likes being rejected, right? I mean, the rejection of our feelings is what caused all of our traumatic problems in the first place. So all we're doing now is treating ourselves the way we would have liked to have been treated in the first place, which was, this is what I'm feeling. It's totally acceptable to feel that. There's no resistance whatsoever. Now, what that means is that eventually all the traumatic material now, which is being held in prison, it's been thrown in the basement and not allowed to come out, can now begin to come out. And all of those traumas can dissolve because they're not needed anymore. And of course, with those traumas come all sorts of personality qualities that will disappear. Physical ailments can disappear, tension, stress, and a growing sense of your natural childlike contentment, happiness, curiosity, creativity. So that's what it means to hold the space. But when you're holding the space, don't think of yourself as some person trying to hold space. Consciousness always holds space. Consciousness has no preference. Consciousness isn't identified. Pure awareness is the ultimate space holder. Because even it holds every space. Even space itself, the infinite space that we see around us, is held in awareness, which is spaceless and timeless. And so as you let it come up, when you recognize that it is only a conditioned pattern and not an actual personal entity, it is not a personal problem or a personal issue, you have disidentified with it. You are not identified as a problem, something I've got to get fixed. You are simply seeing it as a conditioned response. The robot is doing this. Okay, got it. Just this wonderful open spaciousness. And without the conflict, there's nothing to feed this trauma, and it will dissolve. The dark night of the soul precedes a great light. It's when we're still trying to hold on to the personal sense of identity, and it's just run out of moves. It's run out of juice. It's unsatisfying. It is dysfunctional. It is not delivering on anything, and yet we don't know where to turn. All the things that we've invested ourselves in have turned out to not be in our benefit. They have not been fulfilling. That can lead to what would be called a dark night of the soul. And you can have multiple of them, but it's kind of been turned into a Hollywood drama or a lifetime channel drama, right? Oh, dark night of the... It's not like that at all. Anytime you run up against something where you've really run out of moves, you're in the dark night of the soul. Now, what do you do in the dark night of the soul? You sit down in the dark and you wait for the dawn. You don't make a big deal out of it. There's nothing you need to do. You simply sit in the dark, love the dark, embrace the dark, and see that to you, consciousness, you are beyond light and dark because you perceive both. You know the light when you see it, you know the dark when you see it. So you transcend all the light, all the dark. You are beyond light and dark. You are beyond all opposites. All opposites appear in you and to you and are made of you. But you are not either. I mean, the actual transcendence, the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. How do you express something that is beyond all the opposites? It's neither this nor that nor both nor neither. Beyond all the four possibilities is the light and yet is not the light. Is the dark and is not light. It's light and not the dark. It's light, it's dark, it's not light, it's not dark. It's not both light and dark, and it's not neither light or dark. The reality of your being is inexpressible. So we point at it, right? We just point in that direction. And of course, the direction we're pointing at is back here. From the place which is perceiving light and dark. Do you not perceive the light and the dark, the happiness and the sadness? Do you not perceive all the opposites? Then you are beyond opposites. Oh, it is so simple and is so self-evident. It's actually what you're experiencing right now. We've just identified with one part. There's a preference, a conditioned pattern that arises that says, oh, I don't want the dark, I want the light. Okay? And that held on to and identified will make, oh, dark bad, light good, right? Whereas you're aware of both. You're even aware of the arising of a preference for one over the other. So just take a nice step back, realize that you're looking at both and that you cannot possibly know yourself. You cannot form any thought of yourself. You can form no concept of yourself. You can only be yourself and marvel at the mystery of this perpetual unfoldment of the nature of being in one form after another. Annette Anderson. Hello, Annette. How do we know that God isn't evolving? God is and is not evolving. The manifestation of God is evolving. But if God was evolving, it would mean that God was changing. What then would be witnessing the change? Something unmoving must be witnessing that which is moving in order to detect that it's moving. If I'm sitting on a train, there's no sense of motion. I have to be standing outside the train to watch it and notice that those people sitting in there sipping are in fact moving along, maybe at a very fast clip. To bring it more home, I point you simply at your own life. Now, yes, in your life you've evolved. Of course, you've grown. You've learned. You've acquired skills. You've acquired mastery of certain things. You've developed. You've matured, right? You've gotten more nuance, more subtlety, more precision, maybe more creativity. All sorts of things have, in fact, grown, evolved. But look very carefully at your own life. Hasn't there been something throughout your entire life that hasn't changed? The experiencing itself is very subtle. This is very subtle. But while every event in your life has been constantly changing, the content of your life has been constantly changing, the perceiving of it has always been the same. So right here in your life, you have the evidence of that which is not evolving, but is aware of all evolution. That is God. That is the I amness. That is the unchanging background against which all change is cognized. Does that make it clear for you, Annette? There must be something witnessing the evolution that is itself not moving. It's the only way you could notice anything. Something unmoving is the only thing that can register that which is moving. That which is moving is the content of consciousness. That which is not moving is consciousness itself. Or, better put, is you. I always like to bring that home, because sometimes, in non-dual talks, you could talk about consciousness and awareness, and suddenly your mind starts turning this object of awareness there somewhere. I am talking about you. I'm talking about that which is hearing my words. I'm talking about the you that is cognizing everything that is being experienced. Something is registering it. That's consciousness. And I see that as the fundamental substance of the universe. That is the unchanging reality. That is what is. Everything else is an appearance, but that is what is, and it isn't changing. RB, hello RB. In the state of stillness, I feel as if I'm in a dream. Good. You are witnessing the dream. The feeling, I am in a dream, is being witnessed by who? There's a feeling. Clear. I have it too. All the time. Right? Because this is a dream. It is the dream of God. It's not a personal dream. Just got distracted for a second because I noticed because I got YouTube going over here, so I can read on my other screen, so I can read the questions, and sometimes it seems to stop, and I'm not sure if it's just my machine or if it's stopping out there as well, but it does seem to have downgraded the quality of the image, but that's okay, as long as you can still hear me. So, in the state of stillness, first off, who's in the state of stillness? If you're looking at stillness as a state, then you're seeing something that's fluctuating, and I would ask you, who's aware of the state of stillness? Something is aware even of the state. Something is aware when I feel still, I don't feel still. I feel like I'm a dream, I don't feel like in a dream. It's that which is cognizing those opposites that I'm interested in. That's what I want to point you to. Stillness isn't actually a state. Stillness is beingness. Being is still. It's unmoving. It's unchanging. It is stillness itself. So it's not a state. States fluctuate. Go from the state of joy to a state of misery. Those fluctuate. But the state of being does not fluctuate. That's the real stillness. And it experiences nothing but itself. The sense of an I identified with, participating in everything going on out here, once that I is seen as nothing more than a construct of the mind, you can say it's a dream. Right? And both the dream and the dreamer are in the dream. So the feeling I am in a dream is actually an accurate one. Right? But how can you be in the dream? You're looking at it. That which is looking at the dream isn't in the dream, is it? Definition. If I'm looking at a house, I'm not in the house, am I? Is that do it for you, Arby? SS. Hi, GP. After listening to non-duality talks since over 2 years, I've lost interest in many things I used to and can't go back to living in normal ways, even if I want to. It feels concerning. It's a concern only for your mind, only for the old habits. I mean, I'm assuming you're an adult and you don't play with dolls or trucks anymore. You don't have toy cars or toy stuffed animals anymore. Maybe a stuffed animal too. I mean, I got one back there, right? You don't have the same interest, do you? Was it a problem, when the interests of the 5-year-olds the kindergartner gave way to the interest of the first grader, which gave interest, and everybody's interest shifted, around 11, 12, 13 years old when puberty set in. Whoa, did our interests shift? Right? All of a sudden, the world looked really different, and now was there any kind of inner debate? Oh, how do I go back to living, in normal ways? Well, awakening is kind of like going through puberty existentially. Of course, at every stage, I don't know how old you are, but I mean, I'm 67, right? I have no interest in what I was interested in when I was 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. Right? Well, obviously, this has been consistent the entire time. But all the other stuff, the normal stuff of life, no, I have no interest in. I've started businesses. I have no interest in that. I like to write music, right? But I haven't done it in a long time. Kind of like, maybe it'll come back again. Probably will. It's been, it's one of those things that comes in life, but it comes and goes. Right? It's not a problem unless you say it's a problem. And because we are so identified with what we do and who we're with and our normal activities, our standard set of default activities, that when we start losing interest in it, we start to feel uncomfortable, concerning, because it's destabilizing, right? Well, anybody who's ever tried to break a habit knows that destabilization is a good thing. There's a sense of concern, a sense of discomfort whenever we're making some kind of a transition. Why is that? Because the human nervous system is a stability-seeking device. Right? The moment the environment is relatively stable, it locks in, and it wants to keep it that way. But when the kind of insight that non-duality brings begins to dismantle that environment and create a new one, a much bigger one, by the way, yep, the nervous system's going to go, whoa, no, I want to stay here. I'm safe. I know I can be safe. It's simply the safety mechanism. It's not even a personal flaw. It's not even like you've done something wrong. The nature of the system is to seek safety, which means seek consistency, stability. It resists change. It's the nature of the beast. Every critter does. It's the nature of life itself to resist change until it can't, and then it adapts, right? The big difference between humans and other life forms is that we can actually create ourselves a shift in the environment. Whereas other animals, it's always reactive to the physical environment, we actually can create an environment within consciousness that is as big a shift as if, suddenly there was a major transformation of the environment, of the climate. A flood all of a sudden would really throw everything into chaos, and it would be concerning, wouldn't it? Well, our desire to grow into our infinite nature is like a flood, and the nervous system needs some time to adjust. That's why I talk about creating this space. I talk about the yoga of allowing. I talk about the two-pronged approach to awakening. There's the Vedanta approach and the Tantra approach. There's the Vedanta, which is the precision, like we do here, of really looking in depth to see, well, who is it that's having this experience? What's the real nature of your being? And then there's the Tantra approach, which is simply taking that insight and living it, embodying it in your everyday life, letting it permeate every cell in the body, dissolving everything unlike itself. So, does that answer you, SS? I hope so. I'm sure you'll tell me if it doesn't. Carrie says again, thank you for your answer. Are you familiar with the 3 bodies of a Buddha and how they might relate to our experience? Not well enough to be able to talk about it. I have seen it. The best explanation of it, there's an apparition body. There's the Tathagata. I've actually even seen more than 3. I don't want to talk about it in depth because it's not something I really understand well enough to be able to teach it. But the ultimate, from the Lankavatara Sutra, truth is the ultimate body of a Buddha. It is not someone who knows truth. The Buddha is the truth manifested as a person, as a sage, as an enlightened being. The true sage does not see themselves as someone with wisdom. They see wisdom owning a form. The body of a Buddha is truth, pure being, pure awareness. Now it could take many forms, right? It could take the form of, a book. It could take the form of a teacher. It could take the form of a traditional-looking sage wearing ochre robes. It can take the form of, somebody talking on YouTube. It can take any form that it deems necessary. So the actual, remember I was talking earlier about how everything is an appearance of something else. We mistake the appearance thinking that it's an entity. When we think it's an entity, then we think, oh, that's a wise man. Someone who has wisdom. Because we think of the entity as a person who is enlightened. There's no such thing. There's only the enlightened beingness, which is all of you, right, expressing itself through a form. And the form has no existence separate from it. It's not an entity. You are that. You are the awakened being. You are awakeness. That's who you are. And your awakening is simply awakening to its own awakeness. Right? It's not you waking up. It's awakeness waking up from believing that it was you. So the you, the sense of I, returns back to its origin, which is pure awareness, pure consciousness. And then the body of the Buddha is that pure truth. And then the form that it takes can be anything. It can be a Siddhartha, it can be anything at all. There's absolutely no limit. It takes the form of that orchid and the little fountain I have there, and the bunny and the Buddha and the iPhone and the iPad I'm broadcasting this from. It's all the Buddha. There's nothing but the Buddha. Everywhere the eye lands, it sees the face of God. God is not limited to one face, folks. Look in the mirror, you see God. Look to your left, you see God. Everywhere you look, because that's all there is. There is only one. 1 equals 1. The one wakes up to its own oneness. When Buddha first emerged after his enlightenment. He was asked, "Who are you?" Somebody got his attention, this glowing being who was completely disheveled, right? Because he was still emaciated and the like. He had not put on any weight or cut his hair yet, right? He hadn't gone and cleaned himself up, and yet he was glowing. I asked him, "Who are you?" And he answered, "The Buddha, the awakened one." That's what Buddha means. It's Sanskrit. It means the awakened one. It does not mean one who has awakened. It means the one who has awakened to itself. The awakened one. Do you see the difference? So I hope that helps. If you can send me some links specifically about what you're referring to, some writing on those three bodies of the Buddha, I'll be happy to take a look at it. I love everything that has come from the Buddha. Dave and Aline. A few years ago, after a catastrophic breakdown, everything seemed to fall away and dissolve. It was terrifying, but in the end, all that was left was love. I can't explain it in any other way. No need to. No need to. It's terrifying to the egoic mind to lose everything that it has relied on to make it feel as if it was stable and real and present and valuable and had a self. Now, there isn't anything there. Our identification with it needs stuff from the environment to prop it up. We have to have people tell us who we are. You're good, you're bad, you're smart, you're rebellious, you're cooperative, right? It doesn't even matter what the quality is. If it could be really wonderful, it can be really terrible, as long as there's a me there that's defined. And when that starts to fall away, which it inevitably must, because it's not stable, it's not true, it's not absolute, it's not the constant like the truth is, it's an illusion, so it's going to shift. There's a sense of being terrified, sense of dying. That's they refer to as the ego death. But when you realize that it all falls away and you're still here, there's no other way to explain it but grace, love, acceptance, forgiveness, presence. Beautiful story. Thank you, Elaine. And David. Oh, Elaine. Yeah. Robert Goldberg's. Most times thoughts come and go. How can we handle them? By the time you try to handle a thought, it's already gone. Right? When we think about handling thoughts, what we're really referring to is not a thought, because that's gone in a second. We're referring to the fact that there's a repetition of the thoughts. They recur. It's a different thought, but it looks just like one you had a few moments ago. And thoughts form patterns. Look around. The entire universe is nothing but patterns of energy. Everything we call a form is a temporary pattern of energy that has what Buckminster Fuller called pattern integrity. That means it keeps the form kinda for a bit, right? So it's been keeping this form now for 67 years. Now, I didn't look this way at all 50 years ago, right? Thank God. But there's been some kind of a form that's a consistency to the pattern, that I could use the same name, right? And, people could talk about me now, and I have friends who've been around for 25, 50 years, and they could still refer to me, even though that me doesn't exist at all anymore. There's some kind of a little thread there and the like. So everything forms patterns, including thoughts. Those thought patterns are what we call my mind. The ego is nothing but a thought pattern all around the word I. All the same thoughts that always occur around this word I. When we start challenging those, it injects instability into the system. Now, as you begin to realize that it is just a pattern of thought, that there's no truth in it. It's not a fact. It's held together by the fact that I used to believe it, and maybe on some level, some of them you still do. The challenging of those patterns is the challenging of our beliefs, which challenge the pattern, which destabilizes the pattern, and eventually that pattern will dissolve. But the nature of thought is to form patterns, so it'll just form another one. When we're clear about who we are as consciousness that is aware of these patterns forming and deforming, the forming of a pattern won't bother you anymore, right? It won't be a big deal. There'll be nothing to handle, right? You only have to handle it if it presents a problem to you. If you simply realize that it is just a pattern of thought, which also a pattern of emotion, which makes it where there's a sense of feeling it, and there's the patterns of sensation, right? The information and the interpretation we give the information that's coming in through the senses. To see them through those eyes and to know who you are as the consciousness that is beholding it will handle all of it. None of it will become a problem anymore. If there's no resistance, right? You added to the shock value thoughts, right? It happens. I will get a sudden thought. Oops, sound to video is going, GP. Says Wendy. Sound okay now? Yeah, it's kind of YouTube. I think they're struggling a little bit because I've seen it get bad over here, just kind of stop and the like. So anyway, I've had the experience of suddenly a memory will come out of nowhere. My whole body will shake. It's like, oh, maybe something really stupid I did, right? Or some fear that came up. Now, there was a time when I thought, oh my God, I've got to get rid of that. And I would try to do something to get rid of that. Now I don't care. Right? Oh, that's all it is. There's something pops up, some kind of memory. There's a reaction because there's an emotional memory attached to it. It's a system. It's not an individual thing. Boom, and it's gone. Right? If I don't give it a story, if I just let it be there, the shock goes through. Maybe there's an aftershock. All done. Right? Because when a shock value thought comes up, what's happened? A shock value thought has come up. Nothing more. If you don't give it any more interpretation or meaning than that, it'll have no effect other than the little surge that went through your nervous system. It doesn't mean you're not enlightened. It doesn't mean you're awake. It doesn't mean it's a problem. It doesn't mean it's recurrent. It means nothing. It has no meaning. It is simply a reverberation from the past. And if you don't give it any meaning, it will simply go poof. It may arise again. It may not. You don't care. You are sitting in your equanimity. Teresa says, oh, and hi, G. Blessings. Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Oh, my goodness. What time is 74 minutes? Daryl. Hello, Daryl. GP, how do we know that consciousness is appearing as other realities, like existence in other realms or other forms than the ones appearing in this reality? How do we not know? Oh, we don't. I mean, really. I mean, look. What is that? There's like 10 billion earthworms per square mile, pretty much all over the face of the earth, right? Think of all the bugs that are existing. We have no knowledge of them. We have no awareness of them. They're outside of our purview. There's things living on the microscopic level, living beings, right? I have no idea. Consciousness has infinite dimensions, right? What we are experiencing is simply this particular facet of it. Now, the more you identify with consciousness, and the less you identify with this particular facet of it, the more you will have access to other dimensions. Of course there's other dimensions. Why not? Right? I mean, people like to talk about UFOs and then the little spaceships and things like that. But if they did come in a spaceship, it wouldn't be another dimension. It'd be this dimension. It'd just be more technologically advanced than we are. But if they're really advanced, they may just be popping in, right? And not even a sense of in, right? The interdimensional stuff. It's a big deal to us simply because we see ourselves as contained within this. We don't realize that there aren't any walls except the walls of our mind. At which point, it's not like another dimension. That's only from the perspective of this dimension. It is a single dimensionless existence where there are forms in every conceivable way. It is just consciousness. If it's consciousness, it can be you can dream anything, can't you? There's no limits on what you can dream. There's no image you can't be presented with that you can't grasp. All sorts of alternative realities. The only reason we think they're alternative realities is because we think this is reality. It's not. It is a manifestation of consciousness. There are innumerable manifestations of consciousness. Innumerable. Right? I'm only concerned with this one right now because my job is to wake you up. Right? So, just imagining there are other dimensions or trying to understand what those other dimensions are is a nice curiosity, but is meaningless when it comes to the essential thing that you're here to do, and that is to wake up. Right? Once you wake up, then have fun with all of that stuff. But don't worry about it now, right? Focus on who are you. Focus on breaking down that barrier of thinking of yourself as simply a finite, limited person. You're not a person. Person is an image in the mind. It's a construct. It's a thought pattern. Nothing more. Anja, the Oneness Workshop brought me to a point where I was able to see that I never really allowed myself to really believe that I am not separate. I sensed that I have to feel it, and I sense unity now. Wow. It was like the question, I cannot be separated. That is even possible? Wow, that sounds good. Really, really good. Excellent. Right. You cannot be separate from anything. Separation is a belief. It is the belief that what I am perceiving exists independent of the perceiver of it. Like something exists outside of consciousness. There are things coming in and out of consciousness. Well, we have thoughts coming in and out all the time, right? I once did a video a long time ago called There Is No Unconscious Mind. And I made the point that where do thoughts go when you're not thinking of them? Well, they don't go anywhere. They don't exist. They pop into existence, they go out of existence. The idea of separation is that somehow there's a place. So I said there's no unconscious mind, like some place, like the green room, right, off stage, waiting for their cue to go on. They're sitting, thoughts are sitting there waiting for their cue to go on. No, there's no repository of thoughts somewhere. The idea of being separate is universally held. And it's based on the idea that the identification with this is who I am. I am this body. Now, if I am this body, then I'm separate, aren't I? The idea of oneness is absurd. And for most materialists, it is absurd, right? Until they dig into the whole atomic structure of it and find, ooh, I can't actually find anything consistent here. I cannot actually find the form. But for most people, they're just kind of, well, I am separate. Of course I'm separate. There's this out here and me here, and I got to do stuff to get it. Never even question it. That it is an illusion we are living under, and because we believe in it so strongly, we experience it as if it were true. And so we have to come to the place where we are willing to question these deepest assumptions about the nature of our being, the nature of consciousness, the nature of who we are. Can you possibly be separate? Where is the separation between myself and what is being perceived? I have to have all sorts of beliefs about what I'm perceiving, and yet what I am perceiving does not happen out there. It happens right here. The one is all I know. I don't know two. I imagine two, but I only know myself. Everything I experience is within the context of myself. But the self I'm talking about is not this body. It is the consciousness that animates all bodies. The one wakes up to its oneness. The many do not wake up and say, I am one. The guy in the dream doesn't wake up. You do. Issy, hi GP, I am back. Welcome back. Nice to see you. And thank you. Could you please share your thoughts and advice about identifying with the body? Yeah, not a good idea to identify with the body. I think you mean disidentify, or to stop identifying with the body. The identification with the body was not something you consciously chose. It's not like you got into 6th grade or something and say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to be a boy. It doesn't happen that way. It arises spontaneously. Identification arises in front of consciousness just like everything else. It's not like you suddenly decided, I am separate. The sense of being separate occurred first, and then because that sense of separation was so unstable, right? I'm separate. What am I, right? It's a trauma. That sense of separation, when it emerges, is a traumatic event. It is the first traumatic event. It's the fall. And immediately there's a sense of, what am I? And immediately the storyteller mind goes, I'm the body, and begins to identify with the body. I'm a little boy. I'm a little girl. I am smaller. They're giants. That's mommy. That's daddy. And this whole thing is happening, but it's not happening like you're doing it. It's just happening. The whole sense of identity is arising. And it's just, and the sense of identification with it is actually arisen out of that original sense of separation. So it's not like you believe in separation, right? The belief was just there. You inherited it. It just showed up and you've never questioned it. That's all. It is much a conditioned response as anything, as the reflex when you hit the little hammer on your knee, right? It's just reflex, simply because it's never been questioned, right? And because it's universally held, there's the only place you're going to find anybody questioning it is when you run into a non-dual teacher in Satsang. Otherwise, it's never questioned. Nobody says, yeah, but who are you really? Yeah, I was born in Chicago and I, do all this. Yeah, but who are you? Nobody does that. They take all of that information and the attributes and all the stuff and the experiences, and they make a picture of you. But that's not you. That's all the experiences that you have had. And one of the experiences you had, the earliest experience you had, is the sense of separation that gave rise to the identification with the body. And that energy of identification has been going on ever since. It's not personal. It's not you. So even when I say you're identified with the body, it's not 100% accurate. Even that is an energy that is being perceived by consciousness, which isn't identified with anything. Right? So the sense of I, right? At the very beginning of the satsang, somebody asked a question about the sense of I am. That sense I am, which is perceivable, as it has developed, as it has awoken, right, has taken on that sense of identification as if it were itself. And of course, that is what it's being dispossessed of. Oh, it's not me. Oh, I don't identify with anything. I'm emptiness. Nothing can stick. So what sticks? To what does all of this stuff stick? Well, it sticks to the idea you have of yourself, the self-image. The mind doesn't speak to consciousness. It doesn't know consciousness exists because it only can deal in objects. It speaks to the image that it itself is holding. And that sense, very subtle sense of identification with that image, which is simply, I am the body that has developed over years into this whole self-image, that is what is feeling pain, feeling suffering, feeling fear, feeling doubt. All of that is in the self-image. And that very subtle sense of identification. Awakening is when consciousness awakens to the fact that it is not that. It is not even the energy of identification. That too is being perceived. And then that I am begins to return now to its source. It starts looking for its roots, its real roots. It sees that this image has no root. There's nothing substantial there, and begins to notice, well, I'm perceiving it. Well, I must be something different than that. Well, then what am I? And it turns and it turns. It's like the prodigal son finally coming home, where he's welcomed with open arms by the loving Father. The I returns back to its source. The way Christ put it, I go unto my Father. How's that for you, Anja? Is that good? Is that good? Oh, that was Ishi. That's right. Who said that? Okay. Laird. Hey, Laird, how are you? Love you, brother. Great satsang. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Happy face. I like it. Hi, GP. I've been trying to see I'm not this body for at least 5 years. I know I'm not this body, but now this body is very ill. I'm on constant drugs for pain, which dull the mind, but I'm not the mind. Either am I. The mind, either am I. Trouble, fear has taken over. I don't know myself, which is good, but scary. I'm reliant on family and lost my independence. How can I practice letting go of this body and find the peace? Okay. Don't turn it into a thing that I'm trying to know that I'm not this body. For some objective, right, of overcoming the pain or all of that, or regaining independence. Make it an existential inquiry and let the rest take care of itself. In terms of the pain and the dulling of the mind and the like, and the drugs you have to take, I don't really want to advise people on their course of medicine. There are alternatives. There are natural remedies. I mean, do a juice detox. Go to juicefeasting.com and do an extended juice detox. That's cleared up a lot of stuff. There's another program put on by a friend of mine called WildFit, which I've done twice, which absolutely is amazing, which really helps detoxify a lot of the stuff that's in the body. So there are a lot of practical things you can do about that, and so don't make this about trying to fix yourself. It's not quite. It'll get in the way of both, actually. Make this inquiry completely about knowing who you are and finding the true happiness and peace that you talk about. right? Now you can find happiness and peace even if your body is in pain, even if your mind has been dulled, right? Because you're not your mind. You are that which is perceiving the mind. Now I know for a fact, when, for some reason my mind gets muddled, or I'm not feeling very well, I feel quite limited, right? I mean, I speak for a living, right? This is what I do. And so when I'm when I don't have any energy, I don't have any creativity, and my thoughts are kind of grinding along, yeah, it feels very constricting. But then I have to go, well, at some point, all of this is going to fall away. It doesn't go nearly as fast as it used to, 30 years ago. My mind went so fast it was frightening, right? So it's all slowed down. It's nowhere near what it used to be. It takes a little bit longer for thoughts to form now and the like. I'm 67. That's what happens, right? So I just noticed that. Don't make a big deal out of it. Nothing can interfere with your awakening. Just hold that, right? And the awakening isn't about realizing you're not the body. It's realizing you are consciousness. And the more you realize your consciousness, the more easier it is to go, oh, the body is in consciousness. It's not the other way around. I am conscious of the body. Therefore, the body is simply an aspect of me. It's kind of a dynamic expression. It's kind of the vehicle through which I get to express myself. And sometimes the vehicle's broken down and I can't express myself very well. It's like the piano player trying to play a very broken, out-of-tune piano with sticky keys and some that don't work at all. You may kind of sound like the song, right? But it's not the pianist's fault. It's not your fault, right? That the vehicle isn't very expressive right now. And so that will give you a sense of distance about it. The body is suffering, not you. The body is experiencing all of these things, not you. You're simply aware of it happening. So you can be enormously compassionate with the body. Take good care of it. Get extra, whatever is needed to bring it back into a sense of wholeness and health to the degree that it's possible, right? Which for me it's always possible, until it's lights out, it's possible. So don't allow the mind to make any justification of it. I can't realize my true self because my mind's foggy because I'm on these drugs and I'm in a lot of pain. It's simply not true. Simply become aware of that which is aware of the pain. And then go into it, pure sensation. Even take the word pain off of it, as that tension goes to it. And yes, there will be reactions. It's intense. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying this is easy. But be willing to simply be present with it. I'm also not saying don't take your meds, okay? I'm not a doctor, so I'm not doing anything irresponsible. I'm just bringing you to a point to actually, whatever the experience you're having is, right? Don't give it any label. Don't give it any name. Try to experience it as purely and as unbuffered as possible. Completely feel it as a sensation without any story. It's dull, it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it's difficult. Those are all ideas about the experience. So dispense with the ideas and go deeper and deeper into the experience itself until there's nothing but the experience with no story, no narrative, no mind projections. And then see what happens. The more you do that, the more you'll come to a sense of equanimity. In some instances, I've actually seen the conditions reverse themselves as a result of that. But I can't guarantee that, nor would I. I don't promote myself as a healer anymore. I did 40 years ago, but not anymore. But that's exactly what I would do at that point. People got so interested, they got more interested in getting the results than on the existential reality I was trying to present to them, so I kind of backed off. But I don't want The problem with that approach is that people come to it in order to get the benefit, right? As Jesus said, they came to see me not to hear what I had well, so I can go back to my life the way it was before. And here he is holding out the, the utter essence of all truth. And yeah, that's really nice. Let me have, oh, that tastes really good. Thank you. And they're off. So just approach this existentially, not therapeutically. And do the therapeutic stuff, okay? Please do. I eat well, right? I'm in very good shape for a 67-year-old man, right? I eat well. I exercise a lot. I take care of this body as best I can. But I don't regard that existential God. It means nothing in terms of my existential inquiry, right? It neither contributes nor takes away from it. Does that help you, happy face? And keep the happy face. The Buddha smile. Let's see. Oh, thank you, G. It's from True Self Emerging. What is your perspective on illness and disease in the body? Just see it as something appearing. It feels like there's a purpose, but if that IDK, if that is ego. Well, I think I may have covered it from the questioner right before you, but I'll try to go a little bit deeper. To my view, all illness has at its roots an energetic. Oops, yeah, a little bit more. Sorry, I missed that. Has at its roots an energetic issue, issues of belief, stuck trauma, all sorts of things. The physical manifestation of illness, I think, is a manifestation. While modern medicine, as dedicated as they are, treat the body as if it's a self-functioning entity. Now, clearly now, there's a whole lot more interest and a whole lot more regard for the idea of thought and attitude and lifestyle and belief systems and the like influencing the body than when I was growing up. That didn't even exist, right? Nobody thought about that at all. But it still hasn't gone all the way. I take it all the way, and that is, it's nothing but that. Right? Now, as I mentioned before, I used to practice spiritual healing for people. But I found that when the emphasis is on spiritual inquiry is in order to get healed, both suffer. So when somebody's sick or has some kind of a problem like that, I use a variety of different methods, including nutrition, and sometimes even have to send them off, to doctors and the like. I use EFT. There's a variety of things that you can use therapeutically, right? But I love to make the distinction that to keep the therapeutic and the existential separate. When they overlap, it gets confusing, because now my search for finding out who I am is so that I can get rid of my disease. No, the search for truth is the search for truth for truth's sake. It is not so that you get something else, right? We don't love God. We shouldn't be loving God in order to get into heaven, right? That makes heaven more important than God. It's a business deal then. Well, I'm going to worship God because I'm going to get heaven, right? It literally kills God, right? Would you still search for God if there was no heaven? If it was just going to be like, living in Omaha, Nebraska or something, Kentucky, Oh, probably not, right? So keeping your intention pure based on the existential search does not take away all the effort you do to take care of yourself, to do whatever you need to do, and to even probe the underlying energetic causes of disease that can be dealt with at that deep level. So I hope that answers your question. The other one, and actually, Happy Face, I didn't see the whole message. She says that let's find the piece that truly I am. I seem to have completely crumbled into the pathetic separate self. It's just a sense. Isn't what I wanted. I want to be the awareness, right? You are the awareness, okay? Right? Please understand this. You don't have to become the awareness. You are the awareness. It is a recognition. Are you not aware even of the illness? Okay? Then you're the awareness. You're aware of the illness. Don't think that because what you're aware of is unpleasant, it makes you somehow not the awareness. That is, it's a sticking point for so many people. Right? That somehow realizing the awareness, everything is now supposed to be absolutely, rainbows and dolphins. It's not true. It is simply what it is. It just doesn't bother you anymore. Right? But obviously, whether it's rainbows and dolphins or if it's, gargoyles and things that go bump in the night, it's still being perceived by awareness, right? It's that simple. Let the I withdraw itself from the content, from what's on the desktop and what's sitting in the chair, back to here, the one that is aware of it. Is that not awareness? Right. And how many awarenesses can there be? Is there awareness and then something else aware of awareness? Right. The awareness that's aware of me right now is the awareness. There isn't a second. There's not another one. It doesn't have a boundary. Their awareness over here, and she's got a little awareness over here, and there's 3 awarenesses over there. There's a whole crowd of them. I got on a whole bus full of awarenesses today. It isn't that. It doesn't work like that. Are you aware? So don't judge the awareness based on what you're aware of. It doesn't have to be appear to be perpetually harmonious. It doesn't have to appear to be healthy by, the body's standards. The awareness is still there, is it not? That's you. That's it. That's you. She says, actually, my question was not to use it as an excuse to not know myself. Good. Then you won't. And you're not. I can see it. I can feel it. Yeah. A lot of people will say, well, you're not going to be able to do that. Why are you worrying about this? You got all these problems. Because this is what you care about. If you care about knowing yourself more than anything else, then the rest of this stuff, fine. If it's there, it's not there. But don't make any issue whatsoever out of the particular kind of content that appears to be happening. It is irrelevant. Don't lay a story on top of it to make it something other than it actually is. There's no story. There's just something arising. And if there's no place for it to stick in you, it just goes right through. And the place it would stick is an identification and an idea, it shouldn't be arising. Well, too late. It already did. Right? Very important to grasp. The stuff's going to arise. That's why I say it's Vedanta on one side, Tantra on the other. Tantra is just everything in life is arising, but everything in life, as it arising, now gets basically pulled into the unity of the self, into the essential oneness, into the essential beauty. And as a result, it becomes less and less suffering, less and less painful, less and less a problem, until it isn't a problem whatsoever. And in fact, you see that it always has been, is now and always has been harmonious. Bo Snarsky. Hey, Bo. Hi, GP from neighboring BC. If I understand it correctly, according to Nisargadatta Maharaj, when the body dies, followed by all sensory perceptions and even consciousness, then what's left is the pure awareness. Does it mean the I amness has go before it's all undone? I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Does it mean the I amness has to go before it's all undone? Death is, right, look at death from your perspective, from the subjective perspective. We want to see it as this thing that happens and this stuff's happening. Imagine you, right? And, time's up. The time has come, right? Which means that all of your senses just fade away. Every bit of perception, every mechanism of perception fades away. It just dissolves. And it's suddenly like your entire life has been a dream. It's like you wake up at night out of your dream. Oh, it was a dream. The same thing happens. There's this sense of a distancing of it. Begins to fall away. It starts in a very short period of time, and time's a bad word because it doesn't exist there. The whole sense of the burden, responsibility, import, all of it just gone, and there's just stillness. Pure awareness. You are self-aware, and you know you're self-aware. Now, if you have properly prepared yourself, this will be utter bliss, and you can just continue into full awakening. If not, if not, the impulse to be someone will arise again. But in fact, it probably will anyway, unless you've completely, like a Buddha or something. If you're well prepared, you'll notice it arise and go, oh, not this time. I don't need to take any form in order to be who I am. This is what I am. And I can't define what it is. I mean, everything I knew about myself is gone, and yet I'm still here. Well, what am I? Who am I? Well, I'm just this. I am just this. I can't describe it. And it's like, there's no talking going on. There's no mind thinking. There's just presence. That's it. Now, the habit energy, the vasanas, the repository consciousness, will emerge again. Right? That energy to create a new life will emerge. And at some point, you may get completely drawn into that again. It'll fall. There'll be a sense of the walls kind of coming in, closing in, and before you know it, it'll be wah, wah, wah. What did you say there, Bo? Did you say something else about that I missed? Okay, well, guess not. Maybe it'll show up in a minute. So at that point, the sense I am, you've just basically fallen into the absolute. Now, if there's any remaining sense of the I am identified with form, it will reemerge. Right? The I amness does not go. Right? It is the identification with form that goes. The I amness is simply awareness aware of itself. And of course, it has to be. Awareness is by its nature aware, and it is the only thing it can be aware of. Therefore, it is aware of itself. That self-awareness is the sense I am. The ultimate awareness, the absolute awareness, is beyond that. But because of its very nature as awareness, it's not like it's there and then it decides it's I am. The I amness is there constantly. So it is not like it is prior to the pure awareness is prior to I amness in time. It is prior only in origin. The absolute is what is. Even the sense I am is derived. It is awareness pondering itself. It's the best way I can put it. I know it's really not adequate. But nothing I say is adequate. Nothing can capture it, right? Like, try to tell somebody what music is. Try to describe somebody what a kiss is. Yeah. Go kiss, then you'll know. JB1, thanks, G, for your guidance. It's great to hear from someone so wise. I wonder, do you think sexual relationships are a benefit or a detriment to self-actualization and an awakening? Neither. They neither benefit it or deter it. Nothing can deter it. I think a very good romantic sexual relationship, if it has the substance of two people who are both dedicated to awakening, can make a huge difference. It can sweeten all of life. But that doesn't mean it's our attachment to things that can interfere with awakening, not the things themselves. The pure enjoyment of a romantic relationship is neither a detriment nor a benefit to the awakening process. Right? Now, that said, a good sexual relationship can heal mountains of trauma. It's especially true for women who carry much more trauma in the sexual organs than men do. It tends to focus there in women more than it does in men. And so there's a lot of trauma. Various kinds of tantric practices have techniques for helping release the traumatic energy that's stored in that part of the body. So they're very powerful, very healing. They can also be incredibly painful and extremely limiting to somebody, and create more trauma if it's not done wisely. I have to say, on a practical level, a very good relationship, if it's a good, healthy relationship, there's just more energy there for self-actualization and awakening, for your attention going there. Although there are some people who've been in extremely painful situations, and that's been the catalyst that has driven them to awakening. So there's no hard and fast rules here. I mean, I think everybody should have a great sexual relationship. I think they should, and there are ways to do that. It's work. We have a lot of assumptions, a lot of stupid ideas that have to be overcome. I think it's one of the areas that humanity needs to explore on a whole new level, because it's all been so dominated, especially in the patriarchal culture that we inherited, that it's gotten extremely distorted. The objectification of women, the violence and aggression of men, and sometimes it goes the other way around. But neither one of those makes for a sense of us discovering our essential unity, that we're basically two aspects of the same essence. And that discovery of that essential, our individual essential nature, which is genderless. Awareness does not have a gender. It is aware of genders. It transcends genders. Is obvious the nature of awakening. Harmonize every aspect of your life, right? Every single aspect of your life. Grace will bring you whatever you need. It may bring you a dry spell with absolutely, no sex whatsoever. It may bring you a time where there's a lot of recreational sex. Life knows what it's doing. It's bringing you what you need. Just don't hold on to any of it. Don't give it any more importance than it actually has. Don't turn it into something that it isn't. But most importantly, don't get attached to it. Notice that everything comes and goes. Even the only way you can have a long-term relationship is that you recognize that everything comes and goes. If everything comes and goes, then the relationship with the person you're with is coming and going. Now, if you recognize that, you're not gonna get upset because they're not the same person they were a week ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. Duh, they're not going to be. So the relationship isn't the same. So it's coming and going. It can come and go, and you can have a long-term committed relationship, right? But if you think the same relationship is going to hang around, it's not. Both of you are growing. If you're both growing the same rate, in generally the same direction, then you're going to be able to rediscover and re-fall in love and get re-attracted to each other constantly, all the time, right? But if it begins to stagnate and you begin to hold the image of somebody, even though they're changing, the image you're holding of them is not, right? Then you're not actually in relationship with anymore, and that's where the conflict is, right? So I hope that answers your question, JB1, and a great question. I love those kinds of practical questions. Besides, everybody likes sex. What's not to like? Now, I could feel the energy flowing in my body. Good. My question is, when I'm visualizing or feeling it flowing up my spine, am I feeling or watching it? Both. You're experiencing, right? Right. You are experiencing the feeling. You're experiencing you're watching the feeling, aren't you? And the thought of it and the images and all of it that comes. I mean, it's a whole 3D show you are experiencing. And you are the observer, the watcher of it. Right? Is that what you mean when you visualize and feeling it flowing up my spine? Am I feeling it or watching it? You're watching the feeling. The feeling is there, but it's transient. It's temporary. It's going to come and then it's going to go. Right? All experience is like that. You, the one watching it, is not transient. You're not coming and going. You're registering the feeling coming and going. Right? It could be a really intense, Kundalini type of experience. It could be very mild. I think it would just be a really slight sensation. All of them register at the same place. And to feel that essential energy of life is just magnificent. And actually, the more awake you get, the more you feel it. Because there's less and less trying to restrict it, trying to push it away, trying to dull it. You feel life much more fully. Wendy says, as I listen, I hear the self talking to the self. Yes, there's only one of us. What else would it be? It is, but you can't think the self talking to the self. I mean, it's not schizophrenic. Oh no, what do I do? Right? It's not schizophrenic. It is the self pondering its own nature, and when it ponders its own nature, it can it can be pictured as a dialogue. It can be pictured as a satsang. The image of satsang is an image appearing in awareness. All of this, you, me, the camera, the microphone, the internet, all of it. Buddha back there, the Buddha over there, all of it is all appearing to awareness. I skipped one here. Tadej. Does rasa involve any physical contact? I don't know what rasa is. I've not heard that phrase before. So I'm not really sure what it is. I guess because I don't know, and it's obviously an acronym, and if you know what it is, you'd know what it meant, which means I'm probably not going to be able to answer your question because I don't know it well enough. If I knew it well enough, I'd know what you meant by rasa. It's obviously an acronym, but so I'm sorry, Tadej. Paul Joseph, the arising is the self too, and is not outside of it or different. All is self, even the mind which does not understand, and the dreaming. Yes. Everything is being perceived from the place of the awareness. It's appearing in awareness, it's appearing to awareness, and it's made of awareness. So it is absolutely accurate to say it is all the self. The important thing is, and the reason Buddha chose to use instead of talking about the self with a capital S, the way the most Hindu sages did, referred to it as no self, was so that you realize that the objects that were appearing were in fact an appearance of the consciousness that was perceiving them. And there was that unity there. In fact, the separation between perceived and perceiver evaporates. So it is not an independent self. It's not a self. It's not there's the self, self-aware this. It is all taking place within the conscious, the self, and that every object is a reflection of the self, and therefore is the self, right? But is not a self-conscious entity. It's really important to make that distinction. It's all the self. If somebody still has an idea of being a separate self, it's all that they're the self and they're the self. They have consciousness and they have consciousness and they have consciousness, which is now taking consciousness and dividing it up into all these different people. No, consciousness has all of that. Is that clear? Paul also add, who identifies with form? Right. The identification with form is itself a form. Right? Only the formless, and the formless doesn't identify with anything. There's nothing there to identify with. Right? Wendy says, meant to capitalize the self, the one. Right. No, that's okay. I got it. It's cool. Absolutely. The self talking to the self. That's all there ever is. Oh boy. Why does it feel like, this is Jayadevan, why does it feel like there's a resistance being present? Because there is. Right? The feeling of resistance being present is just a feeling. Right? Why does it feel like there's resistance being present? I'm trying to make sure I understand the real intention of your question. And the way I'm interpreting it is that why does it feel like it's an actual presence? Right? Because it is the presence of a sensation. Right? The thing is the sensation in and of itself doesn't have any meaning, it doesn't have any intention, it doesn't have any sentience. It is simply a sensation. And we can identify the sensation of resistance simply because it arises in reaction to something else. It's a feeling of contraction arising in reaction to something in the environment that's happened, right? Which is, there's this energy of not wanting that to happen, of resisting it. And it's okay. That's conditioning. That's the way it works. Sometimes it's actually even useful, right? So you just kind of you kind of remember that the resistance arising is simply a reactive pattern. It's not an issue in and of itself, right? And as long as you don't give it a lot of credence, make a lot of import out of it, it just kind of will eventually fade away. And if you really are present with the entire dynamic, either you'll see that resistance is wise because they should be resistant. There are some people who aren't trustworthy. You kind of feel a certain sense of, right? It's the right thing to be feeling. There's wisdom there. It's telling you something. The problem is the resistance we have that is actually conditioning from the past that's resisting something that's actually quite beneficial to you. That's the misstep. And so to be completely present with that resistance will eventually get it to reconcile with that energy. And therefore that which is actually beneficial will no longer trigger resistance, because it's not really resisting this, it's resisting something that happened to you a long, long time ago. When you completely are present with that resistance, it allows for the entire traumatic, all the traumatic material to come to the surface and adjust itself accordingly. Intimacy is a better term, otherwise sex is mechanical or selfish and harmful. Can be, yeah. I mean, genuine intimacy transcends sexuality. That's why the sexual part of Tantra is actually a very small part of it. The bigger part is intimacy. And it's an intimacy with yourself, with other, with everything, right? Finding the divine in absolutely everything. David and Elaine, I'm speeding up here now. It's over the 2 hours. Thanks for always answering ours and others' questions so clearly and comprehensively. Also for providing the space for us to explore, share, and be. Love and blessings. Thank you, guys. Thank you much. I think I'll take this one. Oh, goodness. Such great questions. Ah, yes. All is awareness like your lava lamp. A light. It's actually not a lava lamp. It's a grow light that, which one are you talking about? That is a salt lamp. And this guy over here isn't actually a lava lamp. It's actually just a little light that puts a pattern on the wall that I thought might add for a little interesting background. And the other light is just a grow light behind my crystal ball. So yes, all is awareness like your lava lamp. Bharat, oh, sorry, I don't understand your language. AGP, this ducks. Comment on the combination of true approaches, the one that you find out what you are not, and the other will include everything else to who you are. Exclusive versus inclusive. Well, they're totally compatible, and they're both part of the same thing. One is Vedanta, the other is Tantra, and Vedanta to me almost always comes first, because if we try to bring everything in and realize our oneness with everything, when there's still a sense of being a separate self, you can't make two one, right? So as long as I'm feeling separate, believing myself to be separate, it's going to be impossible to become one. I first have to break down the idea of who I am. And in order to do that, I have to dispose of everything I'm not. I have to let go of all the ideas I'm holding about myself, the identification with the body, with the thoughts, with the emotions, with the past, with the associations, with the memories, all of the things that I normally think of as me. I begin to dissolve them simply by realizing they are just a form I am aware of. And while they may even be a good example of me, they may even be a good picture of me, they're not me. They're not the original. And I'm trying to get rid of, be free of everything. So what remains, what I cannot step back from, which is pure awareness, that must be what I am. And then you let that begin to sink in, that I really am formless, infinite awareness. That's what I actually am. And I can see the impulse to identify, and I can see all the ways that I have, and I can see all that, but what is looking at all those things isn't any of those things. That's the path of exclusion. Vedanta, precision, clearing away everything I am not, until really nothing knowable, nothing describable, nothing understandable. It's totally ineffable and mysterious. I just am. Pure being itself. Then, as that sinks in, our attention, which has been outward on objects. I'm a separate thing. There's all these separate objects. I've got a relationship with all these objects. Now, as all of that goes away, and there's just myself left, it is so natural for me to turn my attention back outward. Because doing that, all these things are still here. They don't disappear. It's not like the world suddenly and there's nothing here. I just now know that what I'm perceiving, I am not. So I know now what I am. And now I can turn my attention back towards everything that's being perceived from the true knowing of who I am. And now all of a sudden, everything in the universe, because I am no longer a sense of being separate, begins to come in. It's no longer me here, that out there. This is all within me. This is the content of consciousness. This is that which is peopling the universe that I am. And now every object starts to become myself. Separation begins to disappear, not just from my sense of me, but my sense of everything. This is the Bodhisattva path. This is the saving all beings from suffering. You know, the Bodhisattva vow is, I vow, suffering beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. And having saved all beings from suffering, no being has been saved. Can you see that now? As the sense of the suffering being comes into you and immerses itself in that oneness that you know you are, it loses its suffering. And of course you see there never was any suffering being. Somebody even made that comment, said when Buddha awakened, he says all beings awaken too. Yes. This is what he's meant. Suddenly it's like, oh, it's all me. So you no longer see, as the separation leaves from you, you no longer see others as separate either. And you realize that the state of mind that believes itself to be separate is itself just a bubble up there and not the truth. And that is what you save. You don't save it from itself, you save you from the belief that there's anything other than that one. Yeah, I'm going to have to call it quits now. Is he referring to his own non-dual state, meaning there is no other person? He is the only one, but most people are not awakened. What he's referring to, Tat Fu, is what I have been talking about. It's not he is the one who has awakened. He is the awakened one. There's only one. That's the realization. And that's the dream we're waking up from, the dream of manyness. So, on that note, I'm going to have to bring this to a close. How wonderful to be with you all today. If I didn't get to your question, please trust me that it got answered. Remember, I pretty much always say the same thing over and over and over again. I put it in different words, I couch it in different stories, but I'm always just saying the same thing. Every answer I give is your answer. Every insight you have, right, is coming from the same source. The wisdom that appears to be coming through these lips is actually arising in you. The seeing of it, the speaking of it is all one. So, thank you, Eva. And thank you all. Thank every last one of you. Thank you for being willing. You know, when I first awoke to this stuff many, many years ago, there wasn't any. I had no idea what happened. I had no idea what was going on. And it was kind of the blind leading the blind. I was wandering in the wilderness for a very long time. So when I see, you know, literally dozens of people, Muji video, tens of thousands of people coming to hear this, I go, wow, the awakening is happening universally. Consciousness, universal consciousness is awakening. That's what the Buddha represents, universal consciousness. Not you awakening, him awakening, them awakening, me awakening. We are all the symptoms of the awakening. And on that note, I will say, namaste to you all.